Hello, this is Fiona Cuthbertson coming for the pod to record Off the Cuff. This is the first time we're doing a video recording of the podcast as opposed to it just being audio. And joining us on this auspicious occasion is Clark Vasey. Clark is the director of Blue Collar Conservatism, a pressure group including a high number of profile MPs and activists who aim to champion working people and develop a conservative agenda to benefit the voters and communities most abandoned by Labour. Welcome, Clark.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me be the first one that people can see my face on your podcast.
Well, it's great to have you here. So, can you tell us a bit about your political journey and how you ended up as a director of Blue Collar Conservatism?
So actually, I set up Blue Collar Conservatism quite a number of years ago with Esther McVeigh and a couple of other like-minded Conservative MPs and activists. It really, at the time, there was still a big push of the height of the Cameron period for middle-class liberals, and we've got to reach out to these guys. And it was actually a strategy which hadn't been that successful in 2010. It had fallen short of a majority, and while there had been limited movement from the group which Cameron had focused in on, working class voters were moving towards the Conservatives just without any real attention. So we said we share their values, and Labour are really not delivering for these guys. So we set it up with the intent to be the voice of more working class Conservatives. Ultimately, these are the people which I believe the Conservative Party should be for, and also these are the people who are looking to right-wing politics at the same time as more middle-class voters are moving a little bit more leftwards.
So, can you tell us what this means in practice when you're actually campaigning?
So I think you're looking at the people who are out there who have in the past voted for the Labour Party. How do we get them to trust us as a party? I don't think it reaches the kind of the level of anger in some quarters, and certainly the distrust that a lot of voters who in the past voted Labour shifted towards the Conservatives in 2017 and then gave us that majority in 2019. They felt disappointed. We have to show that we speak for them. So we need an agenda that works, that understands their lives, how they live their lives, this Labour government, not delivering for them. So we have got to be those champions for these people, but have the answers, because Reform are very good at pointing out where things have gone wrong, but are less good at following through in terms of just how do we deliver.
And talking about the Labour government and how they've tried to portray the previous Conservative government as corrupt, with Partygate and the PPE contracts, they're facing their own issues now with Mandelson leaking of sensitive market information. How serious do you think this is?
And I don't want to get into the specific case of Peter Mandelson, but Mandelson is so entwined within the Labour Party over the last 30 years that, if there is something there, and you and I right now can see certain things which look alarming, as can the rest of the public. It will be for those in authority to determine exactly what went on. But if there is something there from Mandelson, is likely to be quite difficult for a lot of them to remove. And we're seeing that now with Wes Streeting trying to get ahead of that with the releasing of the WhatsApp exchanges are not great for Wes Street, but clearly he's prepared to put them out because he recognises what might come down the track if there is found to be kind of serious wrongdoing with regards to Peter Mandelson. Then that could be a lot worse than getting out there in front of it.
It certainly doesn't help people's view of politicians and the fact that they are often seen as people in positions of power who can ride roughshod over more vulnerable people. How can we make sure that there are not opportunities like this going forward? How can we make sure that people are actually held to account?
Well, I think we do obviously have a problem with accountability within our political culture. We've seen that over a number of years. Partygate was obviously a painful thing for the Conservative Party. There's some Conservatives who would dismiss the significance as just a bit of cake, but ultimately they took away our freedoms over lockdown. That was a big imposition on the everyday rights of the British public, and they weren't following them themselves. So politicians need to be held to a high standard. If they're going to expect certain things of us using our money, impinging on our day-to-day freedoms, then when they do fall short of that, they should be held accountable. So whatever Peter Mandelson may or may not have done, if he's done something, I hope that he is held accountable. But ultimately, the way which we hold politicians to account is at the ballot box. And Labour don't look in a great place right now. And we clearly, as Conservatives, have still not fully recovered. We've got a spring in our steps since the party conference with the way in which Kemi really showed us her potential as leader. And since then, she's been battering the Labour Party and the Prime Minister in Parliament. And a lot of this Mandelson stuff wouldn't have come out if it hadn't been pressed in the way that Kemi has. But we have to recognise that we haven't been forgiven. And now that we're no longer in a kind of binary political system, we don't automatically benefit from the failures of the Labour Party. And we're clearly seeing that with where reform is right now. So politicians should want to deliver. They should want to be at a standard that they would expect if you're going to put yourself forward for that kind of role. So when they do transgress in an official way, they should be held accountable. Voters have every right to punish them, and we've felt that pain. And we have got a lot of work to win that trust, and in particular, winning the trust of people who are now looking to reform, because ultimately they won't be a Conservative government unless there's a significant flow of people back from reform to the Conservatives.
You mentioned Kemi Badenoch and the way that she has battered the Prime Minister in PMQs, for example. So do you think that his involvement in this can be explained away?
There's two ways we have to look at this. One is that a Prime Minister who, in terms of judgment, doesn't cut the mustard. You cannot explain it away with, I didn't check the vetting. I would hope that any vetting for such a senior position wouldn't be so easily missed. But Keir Starmer clearly did have some knowledge, because we all had some knowledge, because a lot of it was public, and still appointed him to that role anyway. So I don't think it can be explained away by that, just as a casual observer on the outside. McSweeney's resigned, but the buck stops with Starmer. But I think that's the one kind of dimension to look at that it is that the judgment of the man who seeks to continue to lead us and to continue to lead his party, and he's got obviously a job to convince them. But I think at the same time, while it is important in terms of how politicians act, it misses out the kind of the massive failures which the Labour government are doing. Keir Starmer is not doing a great job as Prime Minister. We're seeing some sort of damage in examples of what it's doing to the country, particularly in terms of jobs and employment. And that's what ultimately really matters. Keir Starmer is a man clearly of appalling judgment, and that does matter. And it is absolutely right that as the leader of the opposition, Kemi holds him fully accountable for that. But the bigger job is that this is a government which is not delivering. It's certainly not delivering for working people. Labour's links to the working classes are entirely historic, and those communities that that party was set up to represent, it is so far moved away from where they are now in 2026. And it's incumbent on Kemi and her team to not just expose just how badly a run government this is, but also the absolute dire state that they're taking our country into.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the fact that we aren't automatically in a two-party political environment anymore. So do you think that Reform are going to maintain their position?
I think for the Reform are clearly doing very well. They're saying a lot of things which we as Conservatives would nod our heads to. There's been obviously defections, and defections are painful. Some of those that have moved over are talented politicians. They have made that decision to say, look, the traditional party of the right in the UK wasn't delivering, and in many ways it wasn't. And at the same time, those of us that are loyal, and I count myself as one of those, that for as long as I'm involved in any kind of political activism, it will be for the team in blue. And if ever that changes, I'll hang up my campaigning rosette and find other things to do with my free time. There may be an early election. I think it's very unlikely. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So they have to show that they can take the anger that's within the country and turn it into a program for government that can deliver a majority for them. At the same time, we have to do the same thing. We've got to show that we get the mistakes, that we are determined to build a country that works for working people, because ultimately people are disappointed with how we were in government and where the country is now. But the British people are not stupid. If we create a program, we are the best vehicle for their aspirations and their hopes and dreams, then I think there is every chance that we will do it.
Fundamentally, politics is about helping ensure the country and its people thrive. So do you think the parliamentary process could be strengthened to bring change to the communities? And what do you think about devolution?
We live in a country where there's a bit of a hodgepodge of devolution. I think that there is obviously merit in taking decisions closer to where the impact. But I think ultimately, one of the most important things that we are going to have to come to grips with as a country is the size of the state, what the public expects from the state. Because I think that we've got a very large state in the UK and we've kind of expanded that into local areas. So you get this complexity of government, which doesn't necessarily help those communities thrive. What do those communities need? They need jobs. That means kind of back in business. But the state is so large at the moment. We are so far living beyond our means that we're seeing Rachel Reeves taxing businesses to the point where Labour are actively destroying jobs, which is going to have an impact on every community. So I think we need to be honest about the fundamental relationship between the citizen and the state, that we know that our economy is declining and we need to have a reset in terms of what do people really need from the state. And in the first instance, it should be that we need to get decision making as much power delivered back to the place where it matters most, and that is with the individual, helping them get into a job, helping them have money in their pockets so they can make the most important decisions in their lives, which is how they support their family, hopefully for most people getting on the housing ladder. And then what are the services that are absolutely essential to them, and how do we best deliver those? And some of them are best delivered at a local level where local politicians understand what is needed. But I think a lot of government, and indeed local government, does end up in doing things that people just don't need. Low traffic neighbourhoods is something which has been a kind of a buzz around a lot of councils. It never worked. People want their bins collected. People want to to know that their kids are going to have a place in the local school. These are the things which really matter. And so I think we tend to get into the trap of thinking too much about politicians and how many more politicians can we create. And if we are going to devolve power down, that does need to mean that it still doesn't just sit with central government over it and there's local politicians who look like they've got some control over something, and actually what they've got control over is a lot of the things which the public don't need, like those low traffic neighborhood type initiatives, and their hands are largely tied in terms of how they kind of spend a lot of their money. So I think we need to get back to fundamentals. And I think, to me, the Conservative Party needs to have a leaner, more practical conservatism, which genuinely backs working people, which supports them getting into a job, being able to support themselves and their families, education, access local GP services. This is what people really care about, the state of the roads. Around the corner from where I am in Woodford, we've got a bridge that's been out of action for years. It's cut the area in two, and the council is saying it's going to be another 10 years. But they have money to build a Lido over in their kind of more favoured part of the borough in Ilford, and it doesn't make a difference to how people get on. So it needs to be a system which delivers for working people, that supports jobs, job creation, lets people have much control over their own money as possible, and then delivers the services we actually need, and not create a system which favours pet projects of politicians, be they local or national.
And how can groups like yours help to ensure that actually happens?
So there's a multi-layered approach of what we've tried to do over the years. I wrote on Conservative Home about labour markets because so many of the issues that we've got right now do relate to our mismanagement of labour markets. When we talk about controlling migration, we talk in terms of numbers as if it's a natural phenomenon, when actually it should be driven by what are the labour market requirements. And at a time when we've got nearly 1 million young people not in education, employment or training, the unemployment figures ticking up by about 350k since Labour took office, there is sort of less of a requirement to welcome people in to do the jobs, which apparently Brits don't want to do. My niece works in a care home, which lefties will tell you that no Brit wants to do, and she works really damn hard at a really difficult job, and I'm very, very proud of it. Another part of it is about talking about values, more wholesale agenda, not just pointing out what's wrong. When we've done events, a conference in the past, we always do them in a pub, and we always have to turn people away because they get so full. And last year's conference was no exception. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I do enjoy doing it.
So yes, we're 3 years out of a general election. So what do you want to change before the election comes round so people see that you're activists and it's not just about going to the pub?
So we are real activists, and when we are in the pub, we do talk about politics. It's not just the knees up as enjoy as it can be. I think over the next 3 years, if we can help the Conservatives from the activists up to MPs, the party has to be match fit within those 3 years. I'm a long time activist. I've stood for the party unsuccessfully at a parliamentary level and successfully at a council level, and spend my Saturdays knocking on doors to this very day. And we're getting close to local elections, so that will kind of slip into the evenings as the nights get lighter. So if we are one of many groups and individuals who want to try and help it get to that point, then that's what the next 3 years looks like for me. It's not about our success, it's about the success of the Conservative Party, and that will only come if the kind of people we've been talking about today look to it and say, yeah, this is the best party to deliver for my interests and my values.
And finally, are you positive about the future?
I am positive about the future. It's always good to be positive. There was a lot of debate in the party around Robert Jenrick's defection about whether it is broken. I think Kemi then alluded to it's not beyond repair, which would suggest that a certain amount of it is. And I think there are parts of it which is clearly do not work. And there are areas where I do have pessimism about the future. But ultimately, my great political hero, he's not really been outshot, is Ronald Reagan, the greatest blue collar conservative in the history of our movement. It is about kind of, we are a great country, we are a great people. If you back our people to just get on and do the very best for themselves and their families, I think that will help us turn it around. So yeah, there's much cause for pessimism. We have a terrible Labour government, but as Conservatives, we bring some of that positivity.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Clark, for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed this first, as I say, groundbreaking video podcast for Off the Cuff. Thank you to the viewers who I hope have enjoyed viewing this as much as we enjoyed making it. If you want to come back, please like and subscribe. If you want to buy my book, Party Games, on Amazon, then that would be very cool too. And hope you have a good week, one and all.